ever since the shroud first really appears in history, there's been controversy about it, and there have been questions about its authenticity.
In 2025, a team of experts employed an advanced artificial intelligence system on the Shroud of Turin in an effort to finally settle a centuries-old controversy. What the machine found quickly ended the experiment. Alarms went off and data froze, leaving researchers looking at something that defied every known law of science. Everyone agreed that it was hidden deep within the fabric and that it changed everything, even though they couldn't agree on what the AI had found. This machine found God's code. In a temperature-controlled laboratory in northern Italy in 2025, a powerful artificial intelligence system was analyzing microscopic digital photographs of the Shroud of Turin. Many believe that Jesus Christ's corpse was once covered by the linen stated in John 26:7. The AI's task was to recognize any structural or chemical defects in the fibers. Before the procedure unexpectedly ceased, the data streamed over the panels flawlessly for hours. The system had reached a threshold when its algorithms recognized something that it could not immediately classify. A notification appeared on the central monitor. There was an odd trend discovered. The primary researcher thought it was a bug because the same message reappeared when they started the process again. At that moment, the researchers realized that the AI had found something entirely unexpected: an underlying mathematical structure hidden in the fabric. Both science and religion would be completely upended by what transpired. For centuries, the Shroud of Turin has been among the most controversial objects on the planet. It has a weak, spectral image of a man with scars resembling a crucifixion and is 14 feet long by 3.5 feet wide. For believers, it is the shroud of Christ's burial. Skeptics claim it is a fantastic medieval creation. It was originally seen in public in France around 1354, according to historical reports. The question of whether it is a cunning ploy or a sacred truth has been hotly debated ever since. Over time, the arguments have grown increasingly odd. Others claim that the shroud was created via an archaic kind of photography using sunlight and silver salts. Some claim that it was painted with the blood and sweat of a dying monk. Some said it was a premeditated hoax meant to draw pilgrims and money to a dying church. More radical views claim that the image was proof of a meteor strike or that electricity had burned it onto the linen. Ancient extraterrestrial technology was used to record human life. It was even suggested by some that it was an early hologram left behind by time travelers. Even though none of these theories ever gained solid evidence, they showed how far people were willing to go in order to explain something that shouldn't exist. The covering still divides experts. Scientists agree that no known painting, dyeing, or burning method can match its microscopic accuracy. Every few decades, new tests rekindle the debate, and each time, the puzzle just becomes more intricate. Every time the scientists tried to disprove the results, they got the same outcome. Precise numerical ratios kept showing up in the AI's data records within the minuscule linen fibers. A consistent, orderly pattern was produced by these figures inside the fabric. Although the weaving itself appeared random to the naked eye, the program recorded these as consistent numerical correlations. The experts concluded that none of them fit recognized natural and artistic patterns. The sequence was too complicated for any known medieval method. It wasn't a painting or a natural imprint. It was a data structure. The research team decided to double-check the AI's output using a variety of analysis tools. Only the numerical data that the AI had collected from the fibers remained after all visual elements of the image were removed. The same pattern appeared again. This proved that the result was not caused by lighting or photographic errors. The AI had recognized a numerical pattern that appears repeatedly in the cloth. In other words, the fabric followed an exact mathematical sequence due to its inherent structure. The scientists were reminded of how modern computers save digital data. The data seemed to be arranged properly, as if it had been either recorded or programmed. That was ridiculous because digital encoding technology did not appear until thousands of years later. For many Christians, this was an emotional epiphany. They saw it as possible evidence of divine purpose and as a glimmer of order in what should be chaos. A few were reminded of Psalm 19:1. The heavens declare the majesty of God. The heavens declare the work of His hands. The more the experts studied the results, the harder it was to explain them. The Shroud of Turin could no longer be dismissed as a simple artifact from the Middle Ages. It now appeared to contain information about something deliberate and intelligent that science was yet unable to understand. To truly understand the significance of what the AI found, we must examine the image itself, the centuries-old portrait of a crucified man that modern technology is yet unable to explain. The strange, three-dimensional corpse. The Shroud of Turin first shocked the world in 1898. Secondoppia, an Italian lawyer and hobbyist photographer, was given special clearance to take the company's first pictures. When he discovered the negatives, he was shocked. The negative photograph was converted into a very realistic, positive image of a man's face and body. Thus, the shroud served as a photographic negative centuries before photography was invented. How an old piece of cloth could have such an impact was beyond the comprehension of scientists and religious specialists. When experts examined the shroud under a microscope, they found something far more strange. The image was made without the use of paint, color, or dye. There were no signs of chemical application, no brushstrokes, and no signs of a human hand at work. Instead, the image was confined to the surface of the linen. It only affected the outermost fibers, each of which was thinner than a human hair. It did not sink into the threads beneath. The hue suggested that the top layer of fibers had either been somewhat scorched or dried by a strong burst of energy. Scientists claimed that neither mechanical nor natural methods could reproduce this occurrence. Over time, more advanced research revealed that the image contains measurable three-dimensional data. This shows that the brightness of each pixel exactly matched the distance between the fabric and the body it had previously covered. In the 1970s, the computer processed the data using a NASA image analyzer to create a precisely proportioned 3D model of a human. No known Middle Ages artistic or photographic technique could account for this result. Only if the cloth had been briefly suspended over a human body could the image appear to have collected depth information. This discovery reignited interest around the globe. It was concrete proof of Luke 24-39 for believers, when the rising Jesus exclaimed, "Look at my hands and my feet. It is I myself. Touch me and see." The shroud served as a concrete testament to the real resurrection. But they did not view it as an artistic representation. The wounds in the picture perfectly matched stories of crucifixion. Blood flows in the direction of gravity, and there are wounds on the side, wrist, and foot punctures. Conversely, doubters offered a number of explanations. Some said that heating a sculpture and applying linen on it was an advanced medieval technique. Others claimed that an outdated photography method and light-sensitive chemicals were used to paint it. Additionally, others suggested that it was a random stain pattern that was mistaken for a face. Nevertheless, no attempt was made to duplicate the shroud using these methods. It was impossible to duplicate its minute detail, non-directional shading, and perfect 3D precision. The scientific community was baffled. The shroud functioned like a real photograph, even though it was from a time before cameras. It conveyed depth data centuries before anyone knew how to encode it. With every exam that followed, the mystery only deepened. A simple question tormented researchers. If there were no humans, what kind of force created it? Some physicists speculate that the image could have been created by a single ultraviolet light burst. Others propose that the outcome might have been caused by something completely unknown to us. Physics, such a change in matter and energy at the same time. When they ran out of physical explanations, scientists began to explore farther. in the hopes that advanced artificial intelligence would uncover data and hidden structures that were imperceptible to the human eye. They turned to digital analysis, the blueprint underneath the skin. When scientists used artificial intelligence to clean up the high-resolution digital scans of the Shroud of Turin, they expected better images of the face and torso. Instead, they found something quite different. After the visual noise was removed, the AI found patterns that were absent from the visible image. The cloth's tiny structure included repeating shapes and mathematical connections. Circles, spirals, and crossing lines covered the face, both the body and the hands. These were not arbitrary forms. By following exact numerical proportions that matched one another across the fabric, they displayed a level of accuracy that could not have been accidental. After calculating these proportions, the researchers identified ratios that were nearly identical to the golden ratio, a mathematical constant that may be found in nature, art, and architecture. The same ratio was used in the construction of ancient temples and cathedrals. Scholars discovered that some patterns' spacing matched geometric groupings in 1 Kings 6, which details the construction of Solomon's temple. The layouts appeared to be based on a mathematical theory rather than human imagination, since they were so exact. The AI's data models confirmed the patterns persisted throughout the whole image, even in areas where the apparent features were faint or non-existent. This suggested that rather than being manually applied, the design was part of the fiber's intrinsic structure. The researchers failed to find an answer. No known medieval technique could generate such tiny geometric alignment. It was not like burning, painting, or staining. It seemed more like a coded structure than an artistic creation, as if the cloth had actually captured an event. Some scientists referred to the shroud as a data map. It's a visual record of a real-life event that left measurable energy or information traces. They compared that to how light is captured by contemporary digital sensors, either heat or radiation. One expert called it a physical blueprint of a transformation, thinking that the fibers might have been literally imprinted with the energy pattern of the event that created the image. Some even went so far as to speculate that the linen might have functioned as an early form of data storage, preserving the entire geometry of the human body it covered in addition to an image. This surprise discovery reignited a centuries-old conflict between faith and science. Many believers saw the outcomes as proof of divine intent. The geometric order was seen by doubters as a kind of God's signature written into things, reflecting Psalm 104-24, which says, "How many are your works, Lord? In wisdom you made them all." The proof didn't suggest a fraud, but neither could be accounted for by recognized scientific hypotheses. It went against all they thought was true about the shroud's potential creation. At this time, the scientific team realized they were no longer looking at an image. Unlike anything else, the phenomenon they were studying connected biology, physics, and mathematics. The cloth seems to have the marks of both creation and decay at the same time. Despite these remarkable discoveries, the Shroud of Turin was previously dismissed by the world as a medieval fake. One flawed experiment was the root of the problem, which almost completely obscured the facts and shaped public opinion for decades. The patch, the fire, and the lie. At 1988, 3 different labs, one at Oxford, one in Zurich, and one in Tucson, received small samples of the Shroud of Turin for radiocarbon analysis. When the results were announced, the entire world was in disbelief. All 3 labs concluded that the cloth originated between 1260 and 1390. Newspapers all over the world carried the headline. It became out that the shroud was a deception. For many, that was the end of the story. The shroud, they said, was only a clever medieval hoax. The church accepted the result in silence as the world went on. But there was an issue. The test piece of cloth originated from a single, small area near the border of the shroud. This part's hue and texture seemed slightly different, but it was dismissed as damage or aging, according to new research done years later. This particular corner had been rebuilt after a horrible fire in 1532, when molten silver from a reliquary burned through parts of the cloth. Medieval nuns painstakingly sewed new threads into the ripped part. The test sample had come from that repaired patch rather than the original linen. American scientist Raymond Rogers, who was part of the original scientific team, re-examined fibers from the same area using chemical and microscopic study. What he found changed everything. The examined fibers contained cotton combined with gum and dye, materials commonly used in medieval repairs. The rest of the cloth, however, was made of pure linen that had been spun in a style common to ancient Middle Eastern weaving. The transformation was undeniable. Rogers found that the material understudy was chemically younger than the rest of the shroud. The 1988 dating was based on contaminated and altered threads. This discovery infuriated both scientists and believers. Many wondered how such an important test could have been conducted with a sample from an obviously repaired part. Some said that the church approved the flawed test to avoid a more thorough investigation out of fear of scandal or confirmation of an inexplicable occurrence. Others believed that doubters had rushed to close the case since the shroud's actual age would challenge long-held beliefs about science and religion. In the years that followed, independent researchers used cutting-edge methods, including vibrational spectroscopy, remain analysis, and textile comparison studies. These tests were independent of carbon deterioration, but on the molecular aging of the linen. The results consistently pointed to a far older origin, probably in the 1st century, which is congruent with the time of Jesus of Nazareth. As more details emerged, it became clear that human error and politics had just as much of an impact on the shroud's narrative as science. Once again, the fabric, which many thought had been refuted, was at the center of mystery. Scientists returned to the shroud with new tools and open minds after carbon dating was discredited. This time, they would search for signs of life, wisdom, and perhaps even something closer to divine light itself, the fabric that communicated with the machines. As the AI team dug deeper into the landscape, they moved from studying geometry to studying energy. The earlier scans had precise mathematical ratios that were previously revealed and integrated into the fibers. But the program began converting those same numerical patterns into frequency, which is a distinct kind of data. The geometric alignments were processed using frequency conversion, a method that translates numerical ratios into sound to obtain pure harmonic tones. These tones were similar to the numerical patterns found in ancient temple building and religious music. Upon closer inspection, specialists found that these numbers matched exact sound intervals that the Greek mathematician Pythagoras first recorded more than 2,000 years ago. According to Pythagoras, the universe was regulated by fundamental mathematical ratios, the same ones that create harmony in music. In ancient belief, this was described too as the music of the cosmos, suggesting that the universe was founded on orderly sound and vibration. When the researchers used the AI to convert the shroud's geometric ratios into sound, the results became clear. The device produced smooth, perfectly timed musical notes that followed the same old harmonies. It wasn't simply any sound. The shroud seemed to have a harmonious, orderly pattern, like a hidden song held in the strands of fabric. Physicists suggested energy resonance as a possible explanation after examining the data. They speculated that the image on the shroud might have been produced when a powerful, fast electromagnetic radiation burst struck the linen. This type of energy could temporarily alter the molecules on the fabric's surface without burning through the deeper layers. From a scientific standpoint, this would account for the image's restriction to the fabric's upper strands, rather than its lower ones. The entire event would have lasted less than a billionth of a second if it had really happened. It would have been too fast for heat or fire to spread, yet strong enough to leave a perfect photographic imprint of a human body. Theologians view this idea in a unique way. They believed that the same energy might represent the force of creation itself, a sign of divine order. They pointed to Psalm 156, which says, "Let everything that has breath praise the Lord." They believed that finding measurable harmony and structure inside the shroud suggested that even the fabric of the earth might respond to God's power. This idea suggests that the shroud might represent both the look of a man and the relic of a real life event in which physical matter reacted to an inexplicable stimulus. Conjecture intensified when a group of scholars found that the geometric ratios matched architectural measurements found in sacred sites, like Jerusalem's Church of the Holy Spirit and Rome's Great Basilica. Both towers were designed using measurements derived from early musical intervals that were believed to depict divine proportion. If those patterns were found in the shroud, the cloth's design might have followed the same cosmic principles used in ancient temples. On a simple piece of linen, light, sound, and structure appeared to have come together in a single, mysterious moment. Theologians and physicists began discussing the discovery in secret, despite the Vatican's lack of an official statement. Some scientists believe that the harmonic resonance could be a normal outcome of the imaging procedure. Some wondered if it represented something much more powerful. Matthew 28:2 was referenced by some. It clarifies the moment of resurrection. A massive earthquake was caused by an angel of the Lord coming down from heaven. They wondered if the shroud had caught that precise moment. A flash of radiant energy so strong that it imprinted light and structure on the fabric in an instant. Again, it was hard to tell faith from science based on the data. The shroud was more than just a cloth with an image on it. Instead of being static data, it had developed into a complex remnant that responded to machines with harmony, order, and vitality. But as researchers dug deeper into the fabric's mysteries, their attention shifted from physics to biology. What they found next, hidden behind small spots of blood, would not bring peace or insight. It would cause fear. The blood that should not be present. Researchers expected the AI to confirm what decades of studies had already shown: that the red stains scattered across the Shroud of Turin were real human blood.